Jim, this next question for the late night drive-thru is something that we're hearing from a lot of the listeners, a lot of the members of the Cult of Cornette about. They want to know what you think about what's been going on with Austin Aries. And let me read this question from Ed Green. Over the last few days, I've been reading about Austin Aries' departure from the WWE. Earlier, I commented, or rather speculated, on where he would end up. The general consensus is that he will end up going back to Impact, or Global Force, or New Japan. I tend to lead towards him going back to Ring of Honor, based on your comments stating that Aries was a malcontent in Ring of Honor, and that seems to be the case with him in WWE and Impact. Where do you see Austin heading after his 90 days non-compete are up? Now, obviously, you don't know too much about what he's currently doing, but I guess the bigger issue here is, why is it so difficult for promotions to work with Austin Aries, who is an incredibly talented wrestler? I mean, he's in the ring. Yes. He's phenomenal. So talk a little bit. When did you first meet Austin Aries?
Because he's a professional malcontent. and this is coming from a professional malcontent. But at least I got finished with all the jobs that I wanted and decided I don't care who I piss off because it doesn't make any difference anymore, and then did it. Aries has been doing it from the start. He is a great fucking talent. When I obviously first worked some Ring of Honor shows is when I first met him. But honestly, it was around 2006 when I was doing some Ring of Honor and then started working with TNA. That I got a chance to work close around him because he was there. Roderick Strong was still with TNA at that time. But he was, what was his name, God? Austin Starr?
Austin Starr, yes.
Okay, kind of a superstar, Billy Graham, kind of Austin Idol type of ripoff thing, except a guy that's, and he is a great performer, but he's 5'9", 200 fucking pounds. And he had a nice body, but it wasn't anything, over the top that, but that was the general, the tie-dye gimmick, but it's from a smaller guy. I believe he asked for his release from TNA. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe he did. And then I worked with him when I went back to Ring of Honor after I was finished with TNA in 2009. He was the champion. And my debut interview got to work with him, and he came in and did a heck of a fucking promo. And I watched his matches, and he was having great matches. So he's a Ring of Honor World Champion. He's having great matches. He cut a good promo in the ring with me in the middle of New York City in front of a big crowd. But we come to find out he was always miserable about whatever the fuck was going on. And the reason why he had to part ways with Ring of Honor again was after Adam Pearce had been let go as booker and Delirious had been hired by Kerry Silkin. I was going to help Delirious just like I'd been trying to help Adam. And we had a meeting with a couple of people because, and this is the story, and whether, Aries wants to dispute this or not, it's fine with me because this is what happened. We had a meeting with several people that Kerry either wanted to sign or didn't want to continue using or wanted to deal with in some way, some issue they had. And one of them was Austin Aries, who was making by $50 a night more than anybody else on the talent roster in Ring of Honor. Now, I'm not talking about a flying star if they brought a Bret Hart in. I'm saying anybody on the Ring of Honor roster. Aries was making $50 more a night than any of them. But he had somehow manipulated his way into being the manager for Rhett Titus and Kenny King, the All Night Express, and rather than actually even wrestling on a lot of the cards. And we got the idea that he was being a little fishy about an injury that he may or may not have that actually we think he did have, but he didn't want to give us the details on, but he was not in the mood to wrestle at that point, but Kerry was still paying him this large amount of money. Anyway, he had been going on forever in the locker room to anybody that would listen about how he didn't like Sid and he didn't like Ross, who I didn't like in the end. By the way, fucking Weasel Ross, but he was knocking Kerry's office personnel. He was knocking the company in general, the direction the company would take. As I told him, I said, you've got some of the young guys around here ready to cut their fucking wrists. You're being so dreary. We sat down with him after a Ring of Honor taping at the ECW Arena in Philly one night, Delirious and I, and we said, look, we understand you've had complaints and issues, but Hunter's just started this position, and we're going to try to help and address these things and give us a chance. But You cannot continue to be a locker room lawyer and go and knock in the office and knock in the direction that Kerry or the company wants to go in and saying all these things while you continue to be the highest paid guy on the roster. You need to come to us and give us a chance to let us fix these things, and we will attempt to address it. But you need to let us know that you will not be making everybody miserable anymore. And you know what his response was? I can quote it for you. His exact words were, "They don't pay me enough money not to have an opinion." Okay, then we can solve that issue. And that's when Ring of Honor stopped paying Austin Aries any money and stopped booking him to be in the locker room. And then he, once again, had gone back to TNA. And then I can't even remember what the incident was. Brian, maybe you could, or maybe you didn't care enough to commit it to memory, but he hadn't been there in TNA too long. And this was 2011, 2012, that he was unhappy about something that made the websites and et cetera, et cetera. And then he goes back to the WWF or E and goes through NXT and blah, blah, blah. And he either gets his release because he either asked for it, which was one story, or he didn't ask for it, but he was happy to get it, which was the other story. All we know is the WWE was happy to give it to him. That's pretty much universally agreed upon because he's fucking miserable. And after that interaction that I told you about from Ring of Honor, he went around knocking me, saying, I was turning it into Smoky Mountain of Honor, which would have been clever because that Smoky Mountain of Honor drew bigger crowds than Ring of Honor at that point in time, which with him as the champion is one of the reasons why Kerry was looking to sell the thing and get some of his money back. It was drawing so well with Austin Aries as champion. He is an incredible performer, but he's a miserable motherfucker to be around because he's always unhappy about what the fuck's going on with him, and not even an entertaining way like I am when I'm unhappy about shit, but just fucking bring me down, want to tie a rope around my neck, unfucking happy. And that's why he don't stay anywhere.
As a promoter and as a booker, and as well as being a talent in the locker room, you've been around guys who become a problem because of their drug use or their drinking, or guys who no-show, all things that damage a promotion. Are there any other examples you could think of just someone being a malcontent, someone being the Don Henley of the locker room, causing such a problem, even though it's the most talented guy arguably on the roster?
Actually, now that you mention it, I mean, there's always been guys that were, Hans Schroeder was an example of a guy who was just always miserable, but he wasn't a top main event fucking guy, but there have been people that have just, been miserable, like complained a lot, but I don't think at his level, and for him to have this reputation, and for him to now talk about how many, I'm sure he would love to talk about how many times I've been fired. Well, how many times have people been happy to see him go now? TNA twice, Ring of Honor once, WWE once. I don't even know if he's ever been or can go to Japan, but I wouldn't recommend him going overseas somewhere and pissing those fucking people off.
One last question about this when it comes to people who are malcontents and are always miserable. A lot of wrestling fans currently would probably think of CM Punk, and I'm just curious from your knowledge as someone who was around both guys, was there any comparison? Was Punk very similar to this?
No, I don't see that at all, because Punk had legitimate gripes and also was expressing them when he was a big money draw. And he always, and has admitted this, I think, and other people who know him have admitted it. He's always carried himself cocky and had an attitude, but that's part of being a star sometime if it doesn't get you fucking fired first. But no, I don't remember everybody just wanting to tie a fucking noose around their neck to be around the guy that just complained about what the company was doing with other people. Just complain about what the company was doing, period. Well, we'll never, any of us have a chance. We'll never get over because they're too stupid to do this and that and the other thing. And that's why none of us will ever make any money. Just goddamn miserable. And also, Aries may be a great performer, but Punk, especially as far as a promo, blew past him. I don't believe that Aries would have ever reached a point that Punk did as a box office attraction. So you put up with a lot more of that sometimes from a guy that's drawing a fucking fortune than a guy that's a champion of a company that you're looking to fucking sell to get some money back out of it. You know what I'm saying?
I do. In closing, any prediction about where Austin Aries will go next, and any closing words to Austin Aries himself?
All I can predict is that Austin Aries won't be coming to my house for dinner. And fuck you, A-Double. I enjoyed working with you until you made it miserable and then chose to knock me afterwards when I had to fire you because the boss of the company that you were working for that actually paid you all that money said he did not want to do that anymore because of your behavior and your unwillingness to pledge to us that you would try just to not run your fucking dick liquor just a little bit. So fuck you.